I've spent most of the last 2.5 years wandering around the world campaigning for various causes, and it's fantastic to be back home again among my own people here in Scotland. It's slightly different. The last 2 times I gave a big speech. I was introduced by Middle East Eye, somewhere in the Middle East, as a renowned international human rights expert. And the next time I gave a speech was in Glasgow, and they said, "Here's Craig, I don't think he's too steaming." Which... What do they say about a prophet is without honour in his own country? And it's also lovely to be here in this Carnegie Conference Centre, which is a fantastic venue. And it reminds me that 18 months ago, I was with the South African delegation in the International Courts of Justice in The Hague for the genocide case against Israel. And I'd only once before been in the courtroom, and I hadn't realised that until this last time, that the International Court of Justice, the entire building, the entire construction, was built by Andrew Carnegie. And not only that, it was actually, it still is funded and run by the Carnegie Trust, which is fantastic. And in fact came in very useful, because the hall was extremely full, as you might imagine. The hall's not actually that big. Because I was neither a South African nor Palestinian, I wasn't allowed in as part of the official delegation. I'd been queuing all night, literally, to make sure that I got inside. But even so, some official tried to stop me, and I said to him, "I'm Scottish, we built this place." Which extraordinarily worked. Anyway, I think, having supported many causes in my lifetime, unless there's something very wrong with you, the cause that matters most to you of all is the freedom of your own nation. That's what I feel so strongly. There's no doubt in my mind, there's never been a doubt, that Scotland always was a colony. It always interests me internationally when you talk to people who find it hard to accept. Nobody has any difficulty now in accepting that Ireland was a colony. Everyone sees that immediately. But there's this strange psychological aversion among some people, particularly among some Scots, to seeing Scotland as a colony. And with some people, it's a kind of national pride. They don't want to be a colony. And then I've met others who come from the opposite direction, who are Marxists or people of similar left-wing intent, who feel that you're trying to excuse the Scottish role in slavery and colonialism by saying Scotland's a colony. We're not trying to deny that Scots participated in empire, but conquered peoples, client peoples, subject peoples have always participated in every empire. India wasn't conquered by British troops, it was conquered by Indian troops under British control. And as Alf mentioned, every nation, every one of the 37 native states of India that was taken over, annexed by the UK, every one did it on the basis of the so-called treaty. There was always a pretended treaty between equal states agreeing to the giving up of sovereignty. We're not unusual in that sense in any way, just as our treaty was identical to the Treaty of the Irish colony in all important aspects. So the colonial position of Scotland is not one I have difficulty asserting. But I also want to make plain that I'm delighted to be involved and lend my diplomatic experience to the negotiating and the approaching delegations, and to be involved in the process of education that we need to undertake at the United Nations. I'm looking forward so much to being in it. But I do want to make plain that this does not replace the need for campaigning and progress at home. It goes hand in hand with it. Because my own opinion is that I have never believed that London will voluntarily let Scotland go. It's absolutely true what I've said about to estimate an exact figure is not easy. I'd say it's at least £150 billion a year that they rip off from us, and they don't want to be without that. The status, the finances of the UK depend very much still on the subjugation of the Scottish people. I actually happen to believe that having to refinance, having to rejig, having to give a new boost to their moribund economy would actually be good for the rump of the United Kingdom. I don't think Scottish independence is going to harm them. I think it's the shake of the kaleidoscope they damn well need in that declining moribund nation state. But I don't have high hopes of getting them to see that before it happens. So we are going never to be given our independence. We are going to have to take our independence. To do that, having the cover of acknowledgement by the United Nations as a self-governing territory is to do it with the guaranteed support of the international community. Independence is a state of existence between states. You're an independent state if other states recognize you as an independent state. It is a state of existence on the international sphere. It has nothing to do with domestic politics. You can be a state which is de facto largely independent, like, say, the Turkish Republic of North Cyprus, which nobody recognizes except one or two states. Therefore, you are not actually independent. Or you can be a state acknowledged as independent, but in fact, de facto a client state, somewhere like Palau would be an example, or Guam, some of the de facto American colonies. Independence is something which can't be withheld by Westminster. And it cannot be granted by Westminster either, weirdly enough. If London said we were independent and the international community did not recognize us, we would not be independent. Independence is nothing to do with London either way. Independence as a state exists solely between the people of Scotland and the international community who are going to recognise us. The Supreme Court, of course, in London, of course, was always going to come down against the sovereignty of the Scottish people and in favour of the sovereignty of the English Parliament, because that is the doctrine of the Supreme Court. Everybody knew that was going to be the answer, which of course opens up the motives of the people who went there to get that answer, when we all knew what it would be. We are asserting a different tradition. We are asserting that sovereignty does not lie with a parliament in London. Sovereignty lies with the people of Scotland. And we are taking the case for the sovereignty of the people of Scotland to New York, to Geneva, to the world, and we are going to succeed. Thank you.